Well, that was a big, ugly tour of the geometry creating process for this can, and so let's look into some other stuff. So in this one, we're going to look at the lighting in the camera, and so in my camera here, so I got this animation, and the animation is it's got just a camera move. So I created a very simple camera rig, and there's a look at, and so let me turn on the display for that, and I'll turn on the display for that, and when I turn on the display for that, everything went away. Why did that happen? The null. Why? That's interesting. Let me go to wireframe. Okay. Okay, so that null. So this is a null, but it's a different kind of null than we see in the geometry node. So if I go to miscellaneous, I could pick an icon, I could pick an axis, and I can also pick the size. So maybe if I make that smaller, let's see if I go back to shaded. Still, same thing. Weird. Now this might be a Macintosh thing. Could be on Windows. It works okay. So could be a Mac thing. So let me make this null. Oh, and now I don't see it at all. Axis icon. Okay. Oh, it's not on. Go to wireframe node. Okay, there we go. Now we can see it. Okay, so I have this null, and you can see the null. I've restricted the node so that only we can move in Y. Now, as a look at, sometimes you want it to move in X, Y, Z, but in this case, I locked. So these are right-click, lock parameter unlock. So I locked all of those except for the Y. And I got a little bit of animation on the Y. See, it just moves up of that axis. And then the camera moves in. Now the camera animation, if we go to the transform tab, the X and the Y are locked. And it only moves in on the Z. So it's just moving closer to 0. And then I got a rotation on the X rotation and on the Y rotation. And this guy here, in this case, it probably should be locked, unless you want the camera to, the head to turn left to right or whatever. But for something like that, we don't need to do that. Now, the thing that's different with the camera is that I changed this transformation order, and I picked the default is the top one, and if I pick that one, it just moves in. And the view in the viewport is completely different. But if I change this to this, the bottom one, the transformation order is different, and it moves in like that. So, so yeah. Okay, so let me go to the shaded mode. Okay. So now in order to get the shading to work correctly, I had to turn off that null, at least on my Mac. So now we got that. And so this transformation order is useful. And then sometimes we need to change, rotate X, Y, and Z. And so this is something a little bit can spend some time with later, to play with the differences for that, for different kind of camera moves that you need for a specific thing. A lot of times the layout department in a big studio, somebody else's job is to do the camera move. We get a camera that's already moving correctly. But when you're working on your own, if you want to have a particular kind of camera move, these are some things to play with. So this is a very simple camera rig that I find useful if I want to do like a turntable where the camera moves all the way around an object, and so the lighting stays the same relative, as opposed to another kind of turntable where the geometry changes, rotates relative to the light. So that's good for that. Now my lighting, I got 3 different lights here. I got an environment can. Now the environment light uses a texture. It's kind of like a global illumination type of a light. And Houdini comes with a default light. Now for me, the environment light, I changed the preset. So I went in and added this $HH/PIC/HDRI, and I'll click on clip to positive viewport, and then I'll save that as my permanent default. So gear legacy preset, save as permanent default. And so when if I delete it, bring it in the next time, environment light, it'll already have that. Now, because this path is there but it's incomplete, it'll try to render no image for the HDRI, thinking one there, and it's going to render like a kind of a pink color. So then, but the nice thing about this is if I clicked here on the end and I pick that picker, it gives me the 3 default HDRI pictures that come with Houdini, and I typically use the Garage, so that's one I will use a lot. And then if you have your own library, you can add that also to your own presets for that. But you'll see me do that, and then because I know everybody has access to that. So I have these 2 lights, and so environment light, and then I have a headlight, and the headlight I set to a sun. And the sunlight, if I adjust the orthographic width down here below, the sun will give you kind of a blurry shadow the further you get away from the base. So for example, you have the telephone pole. The shadow at the telephone pole is very clear, but for a sun on a sunny day. But then you get closer to the top of the pole, the shadow's a little bit blurry. The same thing for trees and stuff like that. So this orthographic width gives that little bit of blur. The opposite is the distant light, which is like a sun. That's not going to affect anything, but you're going to get a hard shadow. No matter what, you're going to get a hard shadow. The sun will give you a little bit softer edge shadow. Looks nicer. And both the distance and the sunlight have no attenuation to them, so you get full power on them. So this attenuation is irrelevant. The fall off of the light and spotlight options are irrelevant for that sun. So that's the sun, that light I'm using. Now how they get used is if I go to my output of Houdini and I go to my single can and I go to objects, and then down here below, well, the light, the tin can is getting hit with everything, and then ideally I would have it only get hit with those 2. So maybe that was my intention, and then too late now. I already rendered my file, so I got hit with double light. Now the shadow light, if I go to objects, typically I only light the shadow with 1 light, and because I'm trying to get a quick and dirty, decent looking slap comp. if I used an environment light with a shadow, it does more than light the area right around the geometry. It lights the entire plane. And if your environment light has a HDR with a hot end to it, you're going to get variations in that. And that might look good and might be okay, but if we're just trying to get like something over the background looks good, okay for a stop comp, then I just use the highlight. I don't use an environment light. And then for the background, I have a special environment light just for the background. So that's what I got. Now, for me, I'm going to go back in and shame on me, leave that as a star, because I already balanced my lights. And got it already set up for the all the lights on it. But that was my mistake, which I just caught now. Good thing comes to later. Okay, so that's my lights and my camera for this, and let me hit materials now, because we did talk about materials already a little bit. So my material palette, we can drag a material directly over on an object, but like our can has two groups on it, so like I said before, if we assign materials on the group, dragging a material over onto that is going to add the material to the top level. It's going to add the material up here in that slot, or in this case we're looking at that one. It's going to add it there. But then if it's being overridden in here by this material that assigns per polygon, where are you? Where did you go? There you are. So because they're assigned here, then this top level is not going to be affected. So and as we see here with the dependency tree view show for all, we're seeing that this out of that node is going over to that one, and a good way to double check it. And I have a phantom over here. So anyway, my materials are set up. There's a couple of key one is a shadow mat, that shadow mat, and I also got it here. Where is it? There we go, shadow mat. That one, that's a material you assign to an object that you want to cast a shadow on. So if I go back here and I go pick my shadow, then my geometry for my shadow, or my geometry for my background shelf, is this big giant object. But my shadow, I really only want something that's like right around the object. So I picked something smaller in this case. And my material, I assign it there, shadow mat material. And what that does is that when it gets rendered, I can show you, is I'll go to camera rig. Let's pick another frame here. Go render shadow. I'm going to go to the render view, and for some reason on my Mac I have to respace that. I go to shadow, hit render, and it should, voila, render nothing. So there I have that. So what it does is that it basically assigns a black material, and the shadow is only put into the alpha. And so then when I composite, which I'll show you in a following lesson, how it gets used. So shadow mat is like a black image. We only see the alpha, and the shadow gets put in the alpha, so that we have a black layer to put over another object. Okay. And then if I go, like, if I render my can, okay, see what my can looks like. And then this render here, this render view render, is only used for preview. And so it's not used for final, just for preview. And we can save pictures of this. So I can go down here and click this snap little camera, and let's say I want to go to another frame, and then hit snap. And let's say I go to the beginning and hit snap, and then let's stop the render. And I can cycle between those three. And you notice like it's a rough looking render. So this is a progressive render where it tries to render the entire picture from a high quality down to a detailed quality step by step. And I got this weird thing going on there with my shading. It's some kind of mistake I got going on there. Oh, that's from the poly bevel I put in there. And so, yeah, I shouldn't have put that poly bevel in there. So I need to take that away. Because it's doing some shading thing, which I could explain later. But anyway, so we can do this preview, but I can I don't know if I can save these. How do I save these? So active render, snap 1, snap 2. So I go to active render. And I suppose I could do a screen grab, and maybe there's a way to save it to disk. I've never done that before. Probably is. I'd be surprised if there wasn't. Okay. And so something I do not know about Houdini yet. So anyway, this is the overview of the camera lights and the materials. And as I said, we'll get into this more later.